The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
Welcome to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Peroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini, and we want to take a minute to thank our sponsors. Jay Young from City Athletic Club, he's a sponsor of our show. Meal Prep Las Vegas, we want to thank them for sponsoring our show. And also Joe McDonough from Allstate is also sponsoring the Rise Above show, so we want to make sure we thank them. And today is National Women's Day, so yay for the women out there. And that's all I have for you.
Okay, so I've already got the pressure on me here to pronounce the name correctly. So our special guest today is Jay Craddock.
Very nice, thank you.
Look at that. All right. Running for State Senate, District 21.
That is correct, yes. I've felt as though there was something missing from our government, and for so long I pounded my head against the wall, and I'm saying, somebody's got to do something. I got to do something. And finally I figured out, dumb as I am, it's me. I got to do it. And so I jumped in. I ran it in the U.S. Senate race for a while, and that just requires so much money. I mean, millions and millions of dollars. Wow. just to even have a chance. And so I didn't want to be a spoiler in that race, so I went to the Senate District 21 race because, as you know, Mark Menendo pulled out of that race.
Well, let's go over that for a second.
Okay.
He kind of didn't pull out. He had sexual harassment charges. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was some sexual harassment stuff that was levied against him, and apparently he decided that it was the best thing to just leave.
Right.
And so he did. There's underlying issues there and stuff that has not been brought to the public forefront. And so I believe that the time that Mark was in there, he did a reasonable job for the citizens. What he did in his private life and there and beyond, and the Me Too movement coming at this particular moment, he just got caught in a big wave of disapproval and felt it was best.
Yeah, I did want to make sure, because we're talking about women today, so I definitely want to make sure of how the situation happened.
Right. And I'm wearing my suffrage clothes. Purple and white. Yes, suffrage clothes. That was very important in the history of the women's movement. Yeah. And I'm very much for the women's movement and women's issues. And so I'm there to fight for women. I'm a snowflake.
We're going to talk about that.
I think it's good that there's men out there that do advocate for women.
Yes.
And that you're okay to say that out loud.
I am. I'm an athlete, and Joe and I were talking before the show about how it seems as though the conservative people in the world have jumped on the bandwagon of calling people who have a more liberal mindset liberals, as though it's a weaponized word.
Mm-hmm. So,
just because you have a difference of opinion, you get labeled. And I think I talked to you about this earlier, that I get that. I'm a hairstylist and a trainer, and I'm out in the public all the time. And when you're providing a service to people, you have to be politically correct probably more times than none, because it's livelihood, so you can't really. But I have a few clients out there that we can have a dialogue, and we can still be friends at the end of it. And I said to her, why do you call me a libtard? Why do you call me liberal? Because I have a difference of opinion. I didn't come out and call you a conservative,
a neoconservative,
or whatever. And so anyway, so that was our talk.
So you started this off with walking from Carson City?
No, actually I started in a little town called McDermott, Nevada. Very, very small town up on the northern border with Oregon, about the middle of the state. And I started in the spring of 2017, March 9th, I believe exactly was the day we started. Wow. And walked about 10 miles every day, and then we would return to the town, and then start at 10 and then walk to 20, and so forth and so on. And we walked through Winnemucca and Battle Mountain, Austin, Tonopah, Beatty, all the way down to Laughlin and into Arizona. So it was 630 miles, and it took me until July 1st to complete that, and it got really hot. It wasn't supposed to be really hot. I was supposed to be able to finish earlier than that before it got really hot. So I started early enough, right when the snow stopped up there, and I was supposed to finish before it got really hot. But there was a breakdown of the machinery of the RV that we were in, and then my parents had some health issues, and so it just lingered on and on. So the last day it was like 120 degrees out there, and it was miserable.
Wow. So you started that after you were a fire captain, right?
That's correct.
What ended that career?
Blood clots in my lungs.
Because that's what I was. How's your health? Like, if you have blood clots in your lungs, how did you walk 630 miles?
Xarelto. Xarelto is amazing stuff. It's a blood thinner. What my doctor told me is inactivity will kill you, Jay. Okay, but I know that if I run or if I walk stairs, I get winded. Okay, but if I walk, maintain a continuous pace, then it's not bad at all. And so I would walk, and I didn't hustle or anything while I was walking. I just walked along at a normal walking pace, like 2.7 to 3 miles an hour.
Wow.
And just it took several hours for me to do the 10 miles, but as far as my lung capacity, it felt good. And of course I had the Xarelto, which helps with the blood clots, and had no ill effects. I felt great the whole time. And so,
excellent.
yeah.
Did it get rid of the clots?
Well, there's different opinions. One of my doctors told me that this will break the clots up, and another doctor told me that people who have this condition build alternate pathways, like around the spaghetti bowl. There'd be pathways around that to avoid that, and so the clot remains there, and the blood vessels just make new pathways.
Huh. So it's just another thing of, don't sit around and wait for it to get worse. You got to get out there and push.
Well, I don't know if it's a pushing, but the potential for you to have a blood clot is higher when you're inactive.
Right. Okay. All right. What did you learn from walking and probably talking to a lot of people, especially in northern Nevada?
Yeah. Well, as our conversation started earlier. Some of the things, people in northern Nevada are more conservative than they are in southern Nevada or in the Reno area. And so I remember specifically, I was in Winnemucca. I was eating lunch with my son, and he was sitting with a friend of his, and somehow this gentleman must have overheard us talking and found out I was a Democrat. He got right on my face and pointed his finger at my nose, and he said, "You are one of those Democrats." And he said, "Democrats," what he said.
Democrats, great.
You are one of those Democrats. And I go, "What? What?" And he goes, "I know you. You worship Satan and eat babies." And I went, "Oh my God."
And he was serious, right?
Oh, he was serious as a lightning storm. Yes. And we talked for like 30 minutes back and forth. And I'm saying, "You don't know who I am. I'm certainly not worshiping Satan or eating babies. That's just completely ridiculous." And we talked for like 30 minutes, like I said, and we agreed on some things, disagreed on others. And finally, at the end, he told me he was from Idaho. And I go, "Well, you can't even vote for me. I just spent 45 minutes talking to you, and you can't even vote for me."
Oh my gosh.
No, but I can try to make you feel bad.
Well, he was definitely trying to do that, and he didn't succeed. And that's my advice. When somebody calls you a libtard or a Democrat or a snowflake or any of those other things, stand up and be proud. Take it in. That's how the hippies won the 60s, right? They said, "You call me a dirty, dumb hippie?" Yeah, I am. But this is what I want, and this is what I stand for, and this is what I'm going to do. And let them have their way.
Yeah, it's really strange out there these days between Facebook and everything like that. People only read what they want to read and hear what they want to hear. And I'm also a marriage and family therapist, and a lot of the work that I do is through teletherapy, or like I guess you would call it FaceTime. I FaceTime a lot of people in northern Nevada who don't get services, and it's really interesting. Of course, we're not talking politics, at least my side. I can't let them know that, but it's just two people. And when you look somebody eye to eye and know that they have problems with relationships or knowing, what they want to do in life, these things, they become very human. And the politics leave. And it seems like I'm very well liked. But you take it outside that therapy situation, and all of a sudden, all the names come out. And it's like, here's one of my theories. And so I was going to ask you about this. I don't know if politics anymore has anything to do with issues. You know, it seems like it's more like this overarching ideology to where, like, I played football and I wrestled, just like you, right? You're a big, strong guy, and you graduated from what, Columbia?
That's right.
So you're an intelligent guy. You're all these things that somebody would want, like, we would vote for you. I mean, why? Of course, you know, I mean, you stand tall among a lot of people, you know. But when you look at ideology, they look and you go, well, you graduated from Columbia, you're just one of those elitists. Like, we value drinking beer and not being intelligent. You know, it's a strange thing. Like, you're not good because of your intelligence. And even though you might be very good at sports and a tough guy, they look at that and say, well, if you're a liberal, you have to be a snowflake. You're soft. You're a pinko. You know, all these things. And somehow people have bought into this false narrative, and they buy into it without ever looking at any of the issues. What do you think?
Well, Joe, I'm not in this business to make friends, okay? I'm in this business to do what's right.
Right.
Okay? When I started in my quest for the U.S. Senate, I would tell people, you know, they're going to treat me like Harry Potter. I'm going to be living under the stairs, you know, in a little closet where they shut the door on me. And when they pass me in the hall, they're going to look the other way. Because I have some things to say there that they don't want to hear and they don't want to live with, but they need to. Okay? And the same with this. The district that I come from, District 21, where I want to represent, we have every sewer treatment plant in the valley in our district. It is almost as though the other cities and the county have purposely blighted this area. And now we're being ignored. When our town board makes a statement to the county commission that this is what the people of Sunrise Manor would like to happen, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say that many times the county commission looks at it and says, well, this is not so bad for them, but this is great for our community, and so we're going to push it on them. Okay? Okay, think about this. The Beltway. The Beltway is not a belt. It doesn't go all the way around the city. It stops. 25% of it's missing. Where's that at? District 21. Don't have a Beltway in District 21. And we don't have any of the roads to connect the Beltway to the other side of the Beltway. That's all missing. It's like they completely ignored it. They charged us for it in our taxes, and we're helping pay for everybody else's Beltway, but we don't have a Beltway. Okay? Things like that. And then the sewer treatment plants, all in Sunrise Manor. Okay? We have a lot of school issues, and we have one of the most desperate situations as far as income, not only in the state of Nevada, but in the United States itself. We have a lot of people, retired folks that just don't have any money, and then people that are unemployed, a lot of teachers, a lot of people that just don't make any money. And so that's the kind of area that I'm trying to represent. So I'm not going to make any friends, Joe. So
Right.
if somebody wants to call me a snowflake or anything else, they can talk to the 168 guys that I beat in wrestling. Okay?
Right.
Or somebody who faced me across the line in football, then they can tell
Yeah.
me a snowflake.
Yeah, because so just so people know, right? So we had a Democrat in office that resigned, I guess you would call
Correct.
it. So the person you're going against is a Democrat.
Yes, this is the primary. Of course.
Right. Okay, just I want people to know that.
Okay.
So where would you say that you differ from your opponent?
How do I differ from my opponent? My opponent is a lawyer. I was a firefighter. He has been in politics for 10, 15 years. I'm not sure exactly, but he term limited out in the assembly. He's went through a very, very unillustrious career in the assembly, passed very little legislation that he created himself. Never really served as a chairman in the assembly, and now he wants to move up to the Senate to do the same thing. And this is what happens. This is a lose-lose for the people of my area, because he is the lawyer who represents kids as a public defender. That's what he does. He's a juvenile public defender most of the time. But 6 months every 2 years, he takes off from that job and goes to the legislature. Okay, so we have a lose-lose situation. We either lose our legislator, our senator, our assemblyman, or we lose our public defender for 6 months or 6 months every 2 years. So it's a lose-lose situation. He's getting paid from both of these, so he's not losing monetarily.
Right.
But the citizens are losing because there's nobody there to be public defender when he's a legislator, and there's nobody there to be a legislator when he's a public defender. Okay, I want to be a full-time senator. Okay, that's the biggest difference.
Right.
And then he stands for lawyers. He stands for lawyers. I stand for the people. I stand for the people who walk on the sidewalks of this town, who drive on the streets of this town, who don't zip through it to get to where they want to go, hold all of their political rallies in the middle of downtown Las Vegas. That's not District 21. District 21 is out in the swamps. That's where we are.
So now, from what I've read, they're kind of giving him the inside track. I guess because of his name, he's been there for 12 years?
The inside track. I would equate the inside track to he's gathering the support of his fellow lawyers. He's gathering the support of the Senate leadership.
Right.
I saw a video recently where he was swearing allegiance to a guy who hasn't even been elected himself, and doing it multiple times in the same meeting. This is the kind of stuff that gives me pause, because I'm an issue guy. Okay, I'm not going to swear allegiance to somebody who's going to be my leader, because I don't know what they're going to present me with later on in the year. Right? I'm an issue guy. If you want to talk about fixing the Beltway situation, if you want to talk about correcting the funding formula for education in the state of Nevada, I'm your guy. You want to talk about reducing the fees for lawyers so that they can make more money off of cases, then you got to find somebody else to talk to, because that's not me. Okay?
Something interesting I found too. He also he failed the 2016 political courage test, according to VoteSmart. So he doesn't want people to know his stances on things.
Some of his former adversaries have come to me and said this gentleman, what he does is he waits for you to say something and then he says the same thing. So he never distinguishes himself by having an that's rude. I was going to say original thought, but
but you just did.
You told me if I got bad, you'd go like this.
No, you're fine. You can say whatever
John's
you
not paying attention. Don't worry. We're not cutting anything.
I don't want to insult him. I don't want to insult him because he's a really nice guy. I've met him
Right.
a couple of times. I've tried to talk to him many times as my legislator, and had a lot of difficulty getting in touch with him. But he's a really nice guy to meet. He's very, very chummy.
Right.
Okay? But this guy said that I would make a position, and the next thing I know, he would declare almost exactly the same thing. And I said there was no way to differentiate myself from him, because he wouldn't say anything, and when I said something, he would say the exact same thing. So I don't know about this courage test that you're talking about, but I have been told that by a couple of his adversaries.
All right. So it sounds like he's trying to go along with it to get votes, as opposed to being a leader and really moving in a direction that can help people. Would you say that?
I would say that. I would say that his leadership is lacking.
Also, I found out too, in April 17th last year, there was a vote on permits to carry concealed firearms. He chose not to vote.
Wow.
Any thoughts on that, considering the situation? I mean, we're talking about, you want to be a leader, you got to have some courage. I mean, I don't know either. What would you say about someone who doesn't want to vote?
Interrupt you, but I think as far as leadership goes, you have to have your cause. You can't be a leader if you're going to flip-flop and not have, well, I guess I'm a leader today because I like what this guy said, but tomorrow, leadership is taking a stand, and whatever that is, you have to stand by it no matter what.
Right. Well, I believe that a leader is somebody who stands and points a direction for you to go. Okay, because he's looked everywhere around. He's used the ability to see things all the way around him, and he says this is the path that we want to take, and then how we get there, we need to fight to get there. And if it's an uphill climb, it's going to be a tough battle, but we need to do that. Okay. Now the guy that's not the leader, he's going to say, "Hey, well, we'll just go down that way, and it looks like it's an easy trip." Okay. But I agree. when you decide on a path, when you decide on a stance, like my stance on guns is, I don't want to see these trigger devices that help machine guns fire faster, or semi-automatics fire faster. I don't want to see weapons that have super high velocities, because a super high velocity wound is one that goes in, and then the size of the wound is huge, and you have a lot of damage to a lot of surrounding organs. Okay, so I don't like high velocity weapons, and I certainly don't like smokeless ammunition, because what is it? Is the deer going to be alerted to you because you fire a gun and there's smoke from 200 yards away? No, but if you have somebody up on a building and there's using smokeless weapons, it's going to be more difficult for the police to find them.
Right.
And then there's flash suppressors, and there's silencer, not really silencers, but mufflers. They take like the edge off the sound and make it muffled. Okay, not really silencer like you see on TV. And these things are all military uses of weapons that are for intelligent animals, not deer and antelope and gophers or whatever. Okay, these are for intelligent animals, and we have created these weapons since World War II for the purpose of protecting ourselves from foreign intruders and people that are trying to get to us, and so that's my stand on the weapons right now. Also, and I want to point this out as well, is we need to have some standards by which we judge whether somebody is mentally stable enough to handle a weapon like this. And if it's an age requirement, which seems odd because I know people who are very young and very mature, and I know people that are old and immature. But there has to be some test, like a driver's test or something, to determine that somebody has got the wherewithal to handle a weapon like this.
When I got my pistol permit in New York, I'm going to tell you the story. I told this to John, he cracked up. When I got my pistol permit in New York, I was probably in my late 20s, and my ex-husband at the time, he had all kinds of guns, rifles, pistols. I couldn't tell you a pistol from a whatever, and my dad had some guns in the house too. He was military. But for him to be able, for the household to be able to keep some of his guns if he passed away, somebody in the household, the wife, whatever, has to have a pistol permit, or they'll confiscate any weapons. I don't know what the difference was between confiscating this weapon but not that. And I go, okay. So I literally went down there, and I was scared to death to fire the gun because the sound and all that. So I kind of did one of these, and I just pointed and closed my eyes. I had my things on. I shot it. They asked, like, two of my friends, is she okay? Is she nice? You know, whatever the question was. I had to fill out a questionnaire, and I had a pistol permit. And I can tell you, I don't even know how to handle a gun. That's how easy it was for me to get a pistol permit back in New York. So when they say the laws to get stricter, I mean, how would they get stricter with it? Because to me, I think that still has a lot of political pull in it too. That if you know the right people, you know the right person, they're sliding these people through. I think, I don't know.
Well, I don't believe there's any perfect way to handle this situation. Okay, we've created a real, I don't know, some kind of a bad situation for ourselves. Okay, we've invented these weapons. We had a law in the Constitution that our forefathers gave us the right to have weapons, and we invented them. Then we put them on the streets, and we're selling them, and now people who have mental illnesses and access to grind are killing our kids. They're killing pretty much anybody they want, and they're doing it so fast because we've created this whole brand of weaponized guns, militarized guns, and they're designed specifically to fire fast, and do as much damage as possible.
When people use the argument in the Constitution, it's the right to bear arms. You know, my thing that I laugh about is that, you know, I get it. It's our forefathers, like you said, but why are things not being rewritten as far as how people evolved? Back in those days, you carried a musket because you were protecting your land and your family. And I understand the mentality when they wrote the Constitution back then. However, we're 200, 300 years later, We're supposed to be smarter. People are under more stress. We're technologically more advanced than we were. Why can't they rewrite the Constitution or rewrite it? Because we have changed. It's the same thing in mental health. They use the same ideology and the same way of counseling. Is it ideology? Is that the word? Or methodology, whatever you want to call it, to counsel people today, and yet our lifestyles are so much more different. We're still the same, but why are they using things from 200 years ago when people today have evolved differently with technology?
So I think you're asking me, can we amend the Constitution?
Yes.
There's two processes to do that. One, it can be done through the Congress and then ratified by the states. Okay. And the other process is where the individual state legislatures pass a law just like the Congress did, and then it's ratified by the states. Okay. Some of the things that I think would be very important for us to look at as far as changing the Constitution would be term limits for Congress people. Now they put term limits on the president, okay, but they won't put term limits on themselves. And so we have people like Mitch McConnell, and of course Harry Reid was in there for a long time too, and these people have been there for 40 years. I mean, thinking about that, I was 18 back. No, I had 19 back then, and so these people have been there so long. They haven't walked on the sidewalks with us. They don't know what it's like
In the
anymore.
kids' world today, this is the other thing. You get somebody, I've said this time and time to people my age, older, whatever. You got to meet these kids in the world that they're in today. When we keep saying, back in the day, I hate that saying, back in the day. Well, back in the day, yeah, things were different. Things might have been better. Things might have been whatever they were. But the fact remains that if you've got this older person that's sitting in Congress or sitting wherever they're sitting, and they have the mindset or they have their own, I don't want to say opinion, but their own beliefs that they've carried their entire lives, came from a different generation, still sitting here, and yet you've got these young people coming up. They have technology, they have phones, they have they have parents that aren't at home anymore because now through an economy, both parents usually have to work, okay? So guess what? But we're still living back in the dark ages, even in Congress, with all these old people sitting in there with their old ideology. And my whole frustration is, I get it. I remember my dad saying to me, oh my God, Heidi Marie, I don't want to hear that music. That music is disgusting. And yet my dad loved his 50s, his shoe bop, his whatever. And I used to be a teenager going, oh God. Now I like it because I'm older, and I like it because I loved my dad type thing. So my whole frustration comes from, you got to progress with the change. And when we're carrying these high weapons that, like you said, can blow you apart, can't there be limitations on everything? And listen to these kids. I mean, everybody's making fun of these young kids now. I think it's great that these kids are speaking up.
Absolutely. It was so impressive that young kid that stood up to Senator Rubio from Florida. And
That was great.
Yeah, that just.
That takes guts to be that age, and it's hard to stand up to an adult, even as our children with us. It's hard for my daughter. She's 22. I'm 52, and I know that she struggles with. She won't be rude to me. It's hard to disrespect an adult and say what's on your mind because they are, the adults that we look up to or we think are right all the time. And that's the other thing.
I just did the math in my head, and I was way off.
I was 30 when I had my daughter, but.
Yes. So back in the Constitution, there are some other things that the states need to do because the federal government, the people who are in the Congress, just don't have the intestinal fortitude to do themselves. Okay, like campaign finance reform. Okay, real campaign finance reform, so that we take away the ability of what we've now created, a situation where corporations are people, and they have the ability to have the First Amendment rights of a person, and they can donate unlimited amounts of money to political office or political candidates. That is completely wrong. We've developed a corporatocracy. We're no longer a democracy where the people of this country have a voice. We're to the point where the corporations are now controlling our politicians, to the point where the people are completely disregarded. It's kind of like the people who live in my district. We're at the bottom of the heap here. So that's another place where the state legislatures are going to have to step up and do. I mean, they said this in some of the letters when they were describing what the Constitution was. Alexander Hamilton said that the state legislatures had to stand up and protect the people from their federal government. And this is that situation right in front of us.
But didn't Thomas Jefferson also say that the Constitution is supposed to be a living document?
It is.
Okay, so if we have a living document, it would more than make sense that, okay, like some people, they'll say, I need my gun because, like an AR-15, because the government could turn against me and I need to be able to fight against my government. Well, it's not the same as it was. Like, the government now has drones, right? They have tanks. There's no way that anything that a human being is going to have is going to fight off the biggest, strongest, most powerful military in the history of the world. It's impossible. So the thought that they would need an AR-15, it's just, there's a thought. Again, I'm a mental health clinician, right? So I think behind that. Like, if I say to you, listen, I don't mind you having a gun, Second Amendment, I'm good. I just want you to pass like the MMPI-2, let's say. It's a personality test.
Okay.
I just want you to pass that. It's not a problem. And everybody I've said that to, that's Mr. like conservative type that loves their gun, they're like, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't take the test. It might not be fair. I'm like, really? I mean, what would you say they're saying? Like, to me, it's almost like they're so in love with the gun that they could care less about, it being a person among other people in a society.
Right. I think that there are some people who have fears that would just be the beginning of their rights being taken away. Okay, they feel that this is the keystone, the foundation that holds everything else together. And if you start trying to take that keystone away, then the rest of the rights are going to crumble. And so there's that fear. Okay, and it's I don't think it's an irrational fear, because somewhere along the way, there's somebody's going to say, we need to rewrite the Constitution. And then somebody else is going to say, well, we can't rewrite the Constitution because I'm afraid that if we start rewriting the Constitution, someone's going to try to take my gun rights away. And then after that, they're going to force this on me, and they're going to take this away, and they're going to do this. Okay? What the whole system was set up by our founding fathers. They were a pack of geniuses in my book. Okay, they have this is all set up with balances and counterbalances and things that have to be accomplished and considered. I mean, it's so hard for us now to get something through the Senate because it requires 60 votes, right? So what would it be like if this gentleman came in and said, hey, we want to do away with the Second Amendment, and somebody else on the other side said, no, we don't, and then we have a balancing off, and you get 50-50, and you can't do it. It will not pass because you have to have 3/4. Okay, so it's even a farther standard than what's required in the Senate to pass anything. So when we talk about this, the things that are possible, okay, are those things which both sides see as serious issues to our government. And like I said, those are term limits, and what was the other one that I said? Campaign finance. Those are things that a vast majority of the people can all see are huge problems in our civilization, and our representatives will
I
not
have something to say too.
will not fix that. And so the state legislatures are going to have to. That's
Right.
the bottom line.
You
Yes,
look
ma'am.
pretty good with your new hair and your beard. Not to change the No, what I was going to say, and then I'll let John speak. When this whole thing happened with the Me Too movement, with all that, and when you'd mentioned before about the fear about guns, possession of guns and all this, and how their belief system, one of the reasons that so many women in this country, when Trump got voted in, and I don't like Trump and I don't care, I'll say it out loud, but women got scared, of many of them, that we're going to regress because we have this pedophile in office. He's disrespectful to women. He's just a disrespectful human being on all levels. That's my opinion. And I think what happened was a lot of women got scared, and when they were walking in the streets and they were protesting against him and the abortion and all these women's things that were going on, it's almost the same idea with the gun issue. With a lot of the people that carry the guns are scared that their rights are going to be taken away, and I think that's why so many of the gun holders are like, oh, no, don't take away my right. And women felt that we got this guy going into office, and are we going to regress back in the dark ages? Because we can all say that women years ago, they were oppressed, We're not so much now. We have rights. We can work. We can make a living. We make more money sometimes than men do. So I don't feel that we're regressed, but I think when that was all going down,
I think women make like 70 cents for every dollar that men make on average. So it's still not fair.
it's still not fair. And again, it's you can have that discussion, but generally speaking, I think a lot of women thought it was going to go down the rat hole with, the sexual harassment and just all the things that we've not the feminists. I don't particularly care for the hardcore feminists that say I hate men or we don't need them, but I'm on the part of equal rights as far as if I want to do your job, I should be allowed to do your job. And I should be allowed to make the same amount of money that you make if I'm just as smart. But this is still happening.
It's kind of like in Joe's arena there. I mean, fear can be irrational or rational fear, and
Right.
it doesn't matter. Both of them are just as real to the individual.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And in his
Exactly
profession,
right.
it's predominantly female. So he's a male therapist, predominantly in a female arena. So he has to face his discriminations too at times, I'm sure.
So let's change the subject.
we're gonna let
it's
John
got John. Okay.
John's over there going,
Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
oh.
Why me? We have a guest.
Hi,
Can't we
Joe.
put him over
He's always
here?
He's always
As a healthcare professional,
Yes.
and you just made the statement a few moments ago about that people that love their guns, and I'm not going to give this up. And do you think that stems from their insecurities, and that just like buying a muscle car, or that is that part of that argument? I mean, I understand
it's interesting where you're going. Yeah, I mean, I could say that, but then no one's going to hear me, right? Because
that's right. You're right, because it may be true, and we all know that people don't want to hear the truth.
Well, but we're also like, I have a politician with me today, so in order maybe to move people a little bit to a direction that I think is more sane,
Right.
I need them to hear me. And if I just go right out and go, listen, you got some insecurities, obviously, you got that gun to make up for something. They're already my enemy. They're not going to hear me.
Right.
What I would
But
say...
does that make it any less true?
No, not at all. And that's a difficult thing. Like,
Okay, and then
somewhere along
issue
the
number
line-
2 along that same line
Yeah.
is that you take the NRA, which is actually a gun manufacturer's lobbyist.
Right.
That's all they are. And the money that is spent arm the teachers. I've heard him say, well, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And then how many instances where you've seen these mass shooters or somebody that has an assault rifle, and the cops are all out there hiding behind their cars, and you think
Right.
that somebody with a Glock 9 is going to come in and save the day.
All right. So listen. So we call that, or I would call that, a sophistry argument, right? Like way back in the day, like Socrates, you could, back in ancient Greece, you could be sent to death for that. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a part of what you're saying is true, like 5%. But that's the only part you're saying. Is it possible that a good guy with a gun can shoot a bad guy with a gun? Yeah, it's possible. And they're going to show you anecdotal evidence on Fox News that one guy in some place, maybe in the deep part of Texas, did it. Yeah, it's true. It can happen, and it does.
And his
But
neighbor
the
shot himself in the foot.
Right, but they don't talk about when you buy a gun, you're much more likely to be killed by your own gun
Right.
than, being Dirty Harry and saving people. It doesn't happen like that. So 95% of the argument is what they don't want to see. So I guess I don't want to take it too much of our guests.
Sorry. I'm done.
But let me go with this. We're very capitalistic. And if we take the NRA as a company that's trying to sell their stuff, they've done an amazing job of telling men that in order for you to be a real man, you need what I can create. And, sometimes we look at women a little bit odd. Like, it might take them a long time to get out of the house because they need certain makeup to make them feel good. And that's horrible when you love a woman, because I think I can speak for all of us here. You can speak for yourself too. We don't want our women to only feel good if they need to put on certain things. We know that we love them anyway. But somehow society and the company has made it that they can't be feminine or womanly if they have these certain materials. The NRA has done a great job with men, because somehow if you're a liberal and you don't have a gun, you're feminine. You lack a spine.
What you're saying is that guns are men's makeup.
Absolutely. And I'll say it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, and then I'll get.
Just one last
No,
thing.
but that's I am saying.
My weapon of choice is the flamethrower.
Which is totally legal, by the way.
I
There's
know.
no restrictions on that.
I know.
So I guess what I'm saying is this: if you really want to look at it from a psychological point of view, if you need your gun and you just don't want, and you're so tied to it that you refuse to look at anything else in terms of logic, you're the snowflake, because your manliness is based on the fact that you have a gun. And I'll just say one more thing about snowflakes, because it needs to be said, because liberals are so soft typically that they don't want to they don't want to hurt anybody, so they don't say it. And I hope you say your stuff when you need to attack. You need to attack. The age group and the type of person that typically that commits suicide is 45 to 65 white males. That is, so if you're in that thing, listen, if you want to talk about people, if you want to talk about people that can't handle life, that just say, screw it, I'm done, I'm going to kill myself. Not to be mean, because those people are hurting, and I don't mean to do that, but this is just for conservatives. Don't you dare ever call somebody a snowflake when it's typically white, older male Republicans who commit suicide. That's the number one group of people who commit suicide. They are the snowflakes. And if you want to take the highest group of people who are addicts, white, male, who makes over $150,000. Again, your typical Republican. So it's a projection of their weakness. They're saying that you're the snowflake. How would they even think that? It's because inside they're insecure, they have a fractured sense of self, and they think a gun is going to make them more manly, or by putting another person down makes them more manly. And you see that every day with Trump, putting people down. Anyway, how do you feel?
Wow.
Attack.
You guys
Don't
know
be a
so
wimpy
much.
liberal.
You guys know so much.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this district thing with the District 21. So, because I don't understand all that. Honestly, when I go into a voting booth,
All right.
okay, so can I vote even though, like, I'm in a different district of Nevada, right?
I don't know where you live.
I live 89117, so southwest.
In the southwest, you live a long ways from my area. If you take your arms and you put them around Frenchman Sunrise Mountain, I have the back side of Sunrise Mountain and the front side all the way down to Nellis Boulevard, up to Boulder Highway, and back along Lake Mead Parkway to North Shore Road.
Okay.
And that's the area. So it basically takes in the swamp, takes in the new Cadence area of Henderson. It takes in Lake Las Vegas. It takes in all of well, not all of it, but a lot of Sunrise Manor, and all the way to Nellis Air Force Base.
Okay.
So
You answered my question.
yeah, and anybody who lives in that area can vote for me. Okay. Well, in the primary, you have to be a Democrat to vote for me. But okay. Well, the one thing that we need to consider in this is that we have built this system from the beginning. Okay, men have placed upon women what you were talking about with the makeup and all of that, and men have also placed this other burden on themselves with the sports cars and the muscle cars and the fanciest guns that can be found anywhere. Okay, we want the fanciest cell phones. We want all of that because those are our accoutrements. Those are the things that we feel.
Your accessories.
Yes,
Women
that
have had
draw women.
accessories forever.
Yes.
You guys have yours now.
The things that we think women want us to have. They want us to have, and when I was in high school, all the women wanted me to have a really great stereo with big speakers.
Oh yeah.
Right? But come to find out, the women don't care about stereos and speakers. That was something that I had inside me that I was placing on them. And it's the same goes. But us as men have done that to women. I mean, we
Absolutely.
make them wear those shoes with the really high heels on the back and little tiny toes in the front, which makes them hurt and makes their backs hurt. But they wear them because they think we like them that much, and apparently we do. And then the makeup thing, they get up in the morning. Some of them sleep in their makeup. I didn't know that. Some of them sleep in their makeup. They wake up in the morning and they touch it up really fast, and then they come in and say, "Good morning." Yeah. So, these are all things that we've done to ourselves. We have internalized into our civilization. And so we have to deal with it somehow, and we have to find a way to where we can communicate with these people that want everybody and their twisted young murderous nephew to have guns. And that's where we're at.
So, a long time ago, I would have talks with my mom, and when she would think about voting for someone, she didn't necessarily go by the issues either. She was always like, is this a good person or not? So, do you mind if I ask you some things?
Sure, you can ask me anything you like, Joe.
All right. Who's the biggest role model in your life?
My dad.
Yeah.
My
Tell me
dad
why.
was a state legislator. He has developed Alzheimer's, and currently we're dealing with it. He wakes up in the morning, and we basically have to retrain him on everything to do during the day. But the things that he did when he was at his prime just amaze me.
So, what is it like now that you're running for office, and it would be a really awesome thing when you win, and your dad would be really proud? Would he know if you won or not?
I think that he would know momentarily. I think that it would be a day-to-day thing. He's gotten to the point now where it's tough because he still remembers me, but he has forgotten my brother's name a couple of times, and with Alzheimer's, it just gets progressively worse with time.
Yeah, it's tough. A few weeks ago, I went to my dad's house and I said hi. He looked at me weird, and then he tried to turn around and run. And then I said hi again, and he thought I was trying to hurt him. He didn't know who I was. He was like, who's this guy, like, coming after me? And it's kind of a thing. It's difficult, right? Because as men, listen, our mothers are super important, obviously, but there's something about living up to what your father's done. And you want to somehow, since you were like a little kid, you want to surpass him, but you want to do it in a way that he's proud.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing where you're like, can you like be here for it? Can you? I just want a hug when I do well, and it's like.
I got a good story for you. I went to Columbia, and when I was a senior, Barack Obama was a sophomore. Okay? The same year I graduated, George Stephanopoulos graduated from the news, and he was also on Friends, and went off to. I think it was Cambridge or Oxford for some kind of a special school that they do for really smart people. Anyway, my dad one time said, "Son, you need to be more like George Stephanopoulos." And I'm going, wow. it kind of just woo. And this was a long time ago, but that just it just left me reeling, and since then, of course, he doesn't remember anymore. But that was something that I look back on now, and just I can just feel the the rising up in me. So
Rebellion.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
4.
4.
I have 4. I have a 38-year-old daughter with 3 boys. I'm sorry, 4 boys. She has a baby. And I have a 27-year-old son and a 29-year-old son. My 29-year-old is married. The 2 oldest ones live in Tonopah. My son works at the Solar Reserve plant there in Tonopah. I don't know if you've seen that. It's really amazing. And my daughter works at the big casino there in Tonopah. And her husband works for the gold mine in Tonopah. And incidentally, you talked about some of the things that I learned when I was walking. When I came through Tonopah, people were talking about health insurance. And they were saying, we don't have health insurance. We can't get health insurance from the government. There was a big argument about that.
Right.
In Tonopah, they don't have any health care. Okay, every once in a while they have a doctor there for a little while, but most of the time they have to talk to the doctor through a computer.
Right, and they do that with therapists too.
Yeah, and so it's really difficult, and it's not about health insurance. We need to get away from that discussion and get to the discussion of health care. Okay. Yeah, so.
Oh, and the rest of your family? You have more family.
I do. Where did I stop?
You stopped at the 27-year-olds and the 29-year-old.
And the younger my younger son, the middle boy, Jeremy, he was with me on the campaign. He came all the way down the state with me. Spent all that time together. We were about ready to kill each other by the end, but I think that both of us really enjoyed the trip and the walk. So.
What's the most difficult thing that you've ever had to overcome in your life?
Oh my goodness. It has to be right now with my mom and my dad. It's so tough because my mom, she had a stroke about 15 years ago, so she only has partial use of one side of her body. So it's difficult for her to assist with my dad. And then with my dad and the Alzheimer's, some days are, I mean, I just want to break down and cry. It's just, it's so tough.
Do you?
Do I break down and cry?
Yeah.
I get to the point where the frustration is making my eyes water and I'm shaking and trembling. Yes, I don't know if is that crying? Does that constitute crying? I'm not breaking down crying like that, but I have done that.
Right.
And
it's human. It's okay.
yeah, it is human. It is human, and but at the same token, when you're quote unquote a manly man, you that's the things that you are
We
told
wear
to
that. It's
don't-
hard, right?
Yeah.
So.
It's really hard.
But that I would say that helping my folks in their later years it's been difficult and a real joy.
So we just have a couple of minutes left. What do you want to tell all your potential voters?
I want to tell my potential voters that my name is Jay Craddock. I walked 630 miles to bring my job application to you. I'm a serious man. I'm serious about this job, and I want your vote come election day.
All right.
I'd vote for you if I was in your district.
I would
Thank you
too.
very much. Thank
Well,
you.
I can't vote for you because we live in a different district, but anything we can do with the show to spread it out there and to, keep sending it out, and hopefully that could be a way, to help you out. Because I know money's like a big deal, right? Like your other guy, Steve Wynn gave him a bunch of money, yes?
Yeah, we'll bring that up. A couple of Steve Wynn has given money several times.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we already saw that one, and he's getting a lot of money from lawyers. Lawyers are giving him big chunks of money. I've been getting smaller contributions from a lot of people that are just normal people. I guess lawyers are normal people too, but you'd know more about that than I would.
I understand. Well, thanks for being on the show.
All right,
And
thank
hopefully you had a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jay Craddock. Thanks for watching. This has been the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Peroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini.
And I'm Jay Craddock.
Yeah. Woo.